on, hold on,
freedom.
hold on, hold on, hold on. So I understand that you're coming from an individual rights point of view. I get that. But that's not sufficient to this conversation. You need to be more specific about polygamy, not about individual rights. So the argument about how you have bad outcomes with like women being taken advantage of in any kind of a relationship, that is not in support of polygamy. It just kind of makes something that's against it less powerful. So maybe if you, like I said before, like an argument against social engineering, like maybe making cases against us acknowledging monogamous relationships by the state, that'd be a great place to start. Or an argument for the state acknowledging polygamous relationships. And you'd also have to contend with what everybody's brought up about how taxation, which is the broad incentive, would be complicated in a way that would make it almost impossible. Like that's all what people are going to push back on. But if you could talk about why in the world, and we can leave it to it, we can just be specific to America. America would create the framework for polygamy to be a state recognized form of family. That'd probably be the better way to do it. But just the individual rights path isn't really acknowledging the conversation broadly.
Wait, so thanks for the comment. So the what I said about the consenting age and all that, uh, it is true too, because Abby is trying to refute my argument, and I'm saying that her reputation rebuttal doesn't stand. And that is a legitimate logical argument because just I mean I have to repeat myself. Her rebuttal doesn't stand, and that is an argument. So uh, the as for the purpose of allowing polygamy, yes, it is to expand personal individual freedom. And how's that not a strong argument? This country is built upon the protection of personal liberty and freedom. That is
No,
the
I
most
agree, Hanson, which
important
is why I said I think
uh,
directionally a
foundation
better
of this
case.
country.
I agree with you, which is why I said for this conversation directionally, I think a better case is it's pushing back on like marriage as a social engineering tactic of the government in the first place, because otherwise if we're just speaking in terms of what's like likely to happen, we our government doesn't just put things into place, create complicated frameworks just for the sake of individual rights. They do it because they've been pushed to do it. It happens because of court cases that go to the Supreme Court. It's a matter of politics, none of which applies in this case. And so that's the only reason I'm asking you to like change the direction. Like I think that broadly speaking, I don't completely disagree with you, and I don't think that they're wrong points. It's just it's a very it's a very short conversation to be to say that yeah, let's just support individual rights. Like there's nothing interesting beyond that. You've already made that point, but it's not getting to the conversation that we were having that you have now derailed for half an hour.
Okay, all right. So you don't like the argument for individual liberty. That's all there is. If that's the case, then we should the argument would apply. You know, the communist China, Soviet Union. You
Well,
probably
Hanson, you're at this point, I can tell that you're just not intending to participate.
But
So
but
I'm just
Hanson,
going to stop giving you the advantage of our
okay,
history.
fine. I
Hanson,
believe you.
do
If
you
it is
believe,
that
Hanson,
for
that the
individual
hold
liberty,
on,
yeah.
Hanson, do you believe that a government has an obligation to also protect its citizens and have laws in place that fundamentally protect the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens? Do you believe in that?
Well, how do you define the health welfare?
It's
What
that's
I'm saying is,
what how
let
do
me
I
answer.
def
Let me
okay.
answer that. The government's duty function is to protect private property rights and uphold the sanctity of the contracts. That's all.
Are you in America, Hanson, or are you not? Because you don't seem to
Yes, I
understand
am.
this shit.
You don't understand
You don't
shit. Who
understand
are
it.
you? Who are you?
So
Fucking asshole.
our constitution gives policing powers to our government to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the society. That's part of our Constitution. That's part of our system in America. And we give those policing powers also we basically give them to the states. So every governor has policing powers within their state to protect the safety, the welfare, and the health of their citizens. That's fundamental in the United States. So if you can't
Exactly.
accept
I
that,
completely
if
agree
you
with
can't
that.
accept that and you think that it just should be a free-for-all, that
No,
individual rights
not at
should
all.
run
Like I said,
rampant and not have controls and boundaries. I gave you an example of dancing with snakes, that freedom of religion is very paramount in this nation, but you can't have ceremonies where you dance with snakes. We
well,
stopped it
then,
there. Okay, you can't have
yeah, well, then,
you
I mean,
can't have human
okay, are you done?
sacrifice. No,
I
I'm
mean, that
not
is
done.
sexist.
No, there are things that you can't do, although you have freedoms in your religion. There are certain practices that are against public policy that harm the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. That's
Yeah,
baked
so
in, but this is not communist China. This is baked into the fundamental components of the United States and our Constitution.
exactly, exactly. Like I said, the government's duty is to protect private property rights and uphold the sanctity of the contract that
And the
including the
general
safety.
welfare and
But
general
are you a
welfare,
Well,
Hanson.
no,
citizen of
the
the
general
United
welfare,
States?
Yes,
that is
yes.
Hanson,
the property rights and the people's
No,
welfare.
no.
Yes,
General wealth,
yes,
that's specific
yes.
welfare,
Can
Hanson.
I
That's not
finish? Can I
general
finish?
welfare.
Can I finish?
I don't know.
No,
Can you?
Hanson. Oh, hold on. Here's the thing, Hanson. Here's the problem. You keep saying the same thing. I'm going to point out the inconsistency in the arguments, even though they're not really germane to this conversation, but the arguments that nonetheless you've continued to make, and they don't work together. And so it undermines your individual rights position in the first place. Like I said, if you want to make an argument against the social engineering uh, that the government takes part in when they acknowledge marriage at all, that's one thing. But then to promote polygamous marriage at the same time, them acknowledging that you have to pick a lane, and if in fact you're trying to make the like case for liberty, I would personally say that you would pick the lane of like not having the social engineering, because frankly it is not against the law for people to have polygamous relationships. They can do that all day long. But if they want to take advantage of tax code and they want it to be acknowledged by the state that they are in this kind of marital multiple person relationship, that's a whole different thing that doesn't really acknowledge individual rights, because they have the right to have the relationship. The government just doesn't have to incentivize it.
Well,
So
I mean, if you treat people differently because of their the status, their relationship, then that is encroaching on their individual property rights. So that is the point. I completely agree with previously. I think it was Euro or somebody else saying that just completely abolish the tax code for taxing them differently, treating people differently, whether they're in marriage or not. And I completely agree that is what I'm going to be advocating for,
yeah,
and
that
just
wasn't.
treat them individually
Well, you won't
and
be
equally.
advocating for anything because you've slowly managed to kill the room. So no one will be advocating
Yeah, and
So
I
shortly.
put, and by the way, Hanson, I put the 10th Amendment in the chat, and I also gave you an example of policing powers. Like, maybe you're concerned if you're in the US what food you're eating, and that like there's an FDA, that there's certain zoning requirements, that there's certain things that will protect, that the government regulates to some extent. I mean, maybe you might want some of that in play, just by chance, and it's the 10th Amendment that gives that power to the states, but some things are reserved for the federal government to protect the citizens. That's how it works here.
Yeah, exactly. So we are as citizens discussing what mandate we give to the federal government or the state government to protect our property, and then how they're going to treat us, how they're going to
It's not
tax us.
limited to
That
property,
is that
Hanson.
is the
That's
for the
not,
purpose. That is what
no,
we are discussing, and then you're
no,
basically
it's
just
no, we're
addressing
talking about
or
general welfare, Hanson.
discussion. Yes,
Hanson,
general welfare.
it's
Yes.
it's not limited to property and taxation. It's also regarding the public good, the common good, public welfare,
But what
health,
is the
peace, and
common
safety.
good? What is the common good if it is not
It's
for the individual rights and liberty.
So
Yeah,
Abby,
but that also that's also pertaining to health, peace, and safety. It isn't strictly
Exactly,
property
exactly.
rights, right?
And
And so when we're talking about a population that is vulnerable, i.e., women, with higher rates of abuse in polygamous marriage, that is within the sphere of consideration of the public good.
so
And
you're circling back to what the Abby's previous argument that I have already refuted. You
you haven't refuted it.
just as you get the oppressive or whatever, the violation, domestic violence as much as in
Not
the
at the same rate. Not at the
monogamous
same rate.
relationship. You should do also
Not at the same rate,
abolish
Hanson.
monogamous relationship,
No, no,
or just
Hanson,
well,
you're
leave
missing
you can't
the
man behind
yeah.
differential.
bars at
You're
first sight.
missing that, Hanson, you're missing the differential that by that women are more vulnerable in polygamous relationships. And so it is in the public
Who
good
says
not to
so?
expand
Who says so? I mean,
Well, that's
statistics, and
that's the yeah.
I'll
where do
cite
you
the
get the
statistics.
statistics? I
Yeah,
mean,
I'll get it for you
we
there.
have
Yeah, so
consenting
No,
it's
but
adults.
I just want to make sure when I do cite the statistics, Hanson, that you acknowledge this, okay? Instead of just running back to, property
Let's
rights.
look at
yeah,
just
so Hanson,
statistics, and
that's been the main
let's
problem with your argument. When people indicate to you that there's problem because of prevalence, you respond by saying, "Oh, there's one case of this, or there's a case of this."
not
So
one case of
the
this. You
numbers
just
matter.
have
No,
the
you
same
literally,
argument that
Hanson, you're
that
interrupting me. I really find that annoying. So your response has consistently been, "Oh, well, the same thing happens in X marriages," or also there's some people not taking into any account prevalence. So I don't know why you do that. Abby, I have a response to your other question about legal cases. I did find two legal cases about Utah's law. So there was a man named Cody Brown, and he apparently must have been in a polygamous relationship. And he was featured in a reality TV show called Sister Wives, and he sued the state of Utah over its criminalization of polygamy. And looks like the case took about 2 years, and the federal district court uh, sided with him and ruled that parts of Utah's anti-polygamy law was unconstitutional. The provisions that they found unconstitutional were related to the cohabitation clauses. Um, and they said that that can't be criminalized unless it's also associated with other crimes like coercion and fraud, etc. Um, However, the U.S. Court of Appeals overturned that ruling and vacated that decision purely on procedural grounds due to a lack of standing. Um, so that decision obviously is
So it sounds like they haven't actually ever ruled on the merits on it, from what you're
yeah. Well,
saying.
the first
Interesting.
court did, the district court did, but then it
Right.
got vacated on appeal. But in any case, since then, Utah changed its law, as you indicated, and they basically addressed the issues of the first district court by handling consensual cohabitation relationships independent of bigamy concerns.
So
So I
understand
put
when I
in
say, just one last thing I want to say, when I keep saying the term police power, I don't mean it in a criminal sense. It's actually opposite of that. It's in a civil sense. Okay, and I put all this stuff in the chat to explain it's non-criminal behavior. Health officials using it to compel treatment or prohibit certain things from being in the flow of commerce, that could protect citizens. It's things that promote public health objectives. That's an example of it. So I just need to be clear. I'm using that term, but I'm using it in a legal jargon, if that makes any sense.
I put in the chat a study from 2022, spousal violence in India, which gives some data. Perhaps we were pointing to a different culture, so I can find a U.S. Specific one, but it does indicate in that study that there's I think it's a 40% higher rate of spousal overall spousal violence in polygamous marriages versus monogamous marriages?
Okay, so first of all, I'll have a look at that paper, and then if you want to, next time we can open a room to examine that paper, methodology and statistical analysis of that paper. Would you be able to do that? Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, we could do that.
Cool. And so now, and first of all, look at just had a browse. It says India, right? So India has a very different social environment than the U.S. And if you want to argue for polygamous, well, compare two things, then it has to be ceteris paribus, meaning that all else equal, and then you compare the two. And so whether the paper is doing that, or at least to make an effort in doing that, we don't know, right? And also so if you want to argue one thing is better or worse than the other, then you have to exclude the other other causes. There could be many accompanying causes, and you have to tease those things out. The causal relationship, whether it's caused by something else, but just because of a statistical correlation, and you're accompanying that factor, and then you miss the attribute the cause to something that is just the accompanying that by statistical correlation, but there's no causal relationship. So those are all factors you have to consider.
So if I were to cite a Supreme Court decision in Canada with supporting evidence of higher rates of abuse in polygamous relationships versus versus monogamous relationships, would that be culturally closer to the mark, or is Canada
No, I
considered?
just said, well, that would be better. The Canada would be closer. Yes, the result that the first factor, in the first issue I raised, but the other two issues are the most important. The other two issues will encompass the first issue. Yeah, but put it up, and then we can analyze it and dig into the technical details, if you're willing to do so.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, I'm just carte blanche going to accept the at first blush the findings of people who know more, both. And this is appeal to an authority. I get it's a logical fallacy.
Exactly. So I mean, and lots of the social, to be honest, lots of the social science papers are full of statistical, lots of statistical errors, and yeah.
Okay, but let's just play hypothetical here, right? Let's assume that the Supreme Court of Canada did its due diligence and found this concern to be valid, that there is higher rates of abuse for women in polygamous marriages. What then do you say? Like, let's say we go through the rigmarole and we find this. Yeah, let's say it is caused. Yes, let's say it is determined.
Is it caused by the monogamous? Polygamous relationship, or is it not?
Well, let's say it is. I mean, regardless of the causation, that in fact in these relationships you see a higher rate of abuse.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. You can say that. Well, what about the if in situation where man is present, as opposed to a situation when only women are present? Which situation will give you a higher probability of violent crimes?
Well, in the case of marriages, actually, female marriages lesbian marriages have higher rates of domestic abuse than male-female
No, I mean that's
marriages.
You guys, hold
domestic
on. This,
abuse
I'm just gonna say
sustaining
this because
the
this is
physical
gonna get old. So here's the
injuries.
thing. Here's the thing. So it doesn't really matter whether or not you can say that you can defend against polygamous marriage. Like, you've already made your point about individual rights, Hanson. It's been established. It just can't, you can't continue to make it. It becomes very tedious for a person to keep repeating themselves. If in fact you want to make a case for the government to recognize polygamy in terms of like a marital or a family structure, you'd have to make a case for why it is beneficial to society outside of what you've already said. That's so like it's kind of just, it's like a waste of opportunity to have that conversation for you to try to defend against the claims about it being um, less beneficial to society, because of course no state outside of their constitution forcing you to allow it, no state is going to institute something in their society just because there are other things that are also bad. Make a case for why it should be part of the social engineering fabric of America, or a case why no marriage should be. But trying to say that there's also like, just because girls can be taken advantage of in polygamous marriages doesn't mean anything because they can be taken advantage of in general. That is not a case for why a government should recognize something.
Well,
Why would a government ever recognize polygamy? Like ever?
I think, Kelly, you have to go a little deeper with him and first let him acknowledge that the government has the ability to regulate some behaviors in their society other than just to protect property rights in order to protect its citizens. Like, he won't acknowledge that part.
Yeah,
yeah,
Because he,
To
because,
I
Abby's
completely
well,
point,
push back on the your government to try to mold the individual.
well, let me just say this really
Yeah,
quickly,
we
going
already
to
know
because
that,
Abby's
Hanson.
point.
this
That's
is
your position.
yeah, this is all that, this is Hanson's broad
Exactly.
foundation for like how he sees the government's role, and I know this about him.
No, to Abby's point, I put in the chat some of the police powers that she was referring to that hopefully Hanson can acknowledge. So I mentioned it includes public health measures, quarantines, vaccinations, safety rules, building codes, moral regulations, gambling bans, etc., and welfare laws like zoning, minimum wages, etc. So maybe he just doesn't believe in the the general police powers.
No,
Uh,
I do accept. Like I said, it needs to. The government needs to protect private property rights, and then the police is needed, and the soldiers' defense department is needed
I
to
didn't say the
protect the
police.
against
I'm
the.
talking about police powers.
See,
Yeah,
Hanson,
police
for a
power,
bright
but
guy, you
if
just fell in
don't
the
they don't
trap.
have power,
Policing
what's the use
powers
of the
is not
police?
criminal. I say it again. Hanson, you just fell in the trap and you're a smart guy. Policing powers is not being used in the term police like you're thinking. It means
That
governing powers, okay?
that's why I gave
Okay,
you
define
specific.
police power then.
Well,
Define police power.
I gave you very specific examples: building codes, fire safety laws, prohibitions on gambling, prohibitions on obscenity, minimum wage laws, zoning
Yeah, I
statutes.
am against the minimum wage laws. I'm against the what's that? Gambling? Yeah, gambling laws.
Well, are
The
you
prohibition
against
on
the
gambling.
idea that the
Yes.
government can have public health regulations?
Which public? What kind of public health
Any kind of
regulations?
public health regulations.
That
Yeah,
your
no,
that your meat is not that your
in
meat
general,
that
yes, I'm against the that kind of regulation.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I mean, this is just so ridiculous at this point.
Well,
so
because
go
you
eat so
can't
go
think
eat
of
some
it.
bad meat that's never been
No, because you
inspected.
can't have
That's
a
a good
functioning
idea.
society without those powers.
Yes, you can.
So
No,
if I
you
may
can't.
jump
There's
in,
no example of it. You
Well,
want to live
just
in a
because your
society
imagination doesn't
where
allow you
food isn't
allow you
tested,
to.
where drugs aren't tested, where anybody can just do anything. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yes,
There's no
because your
traffic
imagination
laws.
doesn't
There's no
allow you to
zoning. You could just
imagine that
build
kind of
a pig farm
situation.
right next to your house. Is that a
So
good
so
idea?
So so no traffic lights, no one-way streets. I mean, how far is this going to go?
Well, the traffic light, you can have the roads can be privately owned, privately built, and you have the private companies can have the
Yeah,
rules
we
set
tried
on
that.
the.
Guess what? It was a disaster. That's why they
No,
switched to public
we
roads.
no,
So
it's
if
Yes,
better
that's
than the
historical.
yeah, it's
if
not,
I
it's
if I
better
could
than the government mandated built
Well,
highways
if
and
it
all
was
that.
better,
Let's not feed
why
the
did we
beast,
switch?
guys. Let's not feed the beast. We're going to collapse into Hansen world ideology, and
Well, I
it's
mean,
not rational because
Yeah.
he restricts it to
it's
property
absolutely
rights,
silly.
and it's not the Constitution, the general welfare, public safety, and public interest. It's beyond just private property rights, and that's what Hansen won't acknowledge because he's an
No,
ideologue.
it can all be subsumed by the private property rights.
Well, but Hanson's
No,
also
Can't be.
he's also inconsistent because you can't both argue against the government's role in this and then argue for expanding it. You just can't do both. You need to pick a lane, Hanson, if you want
No, wait,
people to
which one,
appreciate what you're saying.
when am I expanding the government's role?
If you want the government to expand its social engineering to design polygamy into the fabric of what America considers to be beneficial socially, then that is against the broad topic or the broad argument you almost always
Oh,
make.
no, I actually, I like I said before, the optimal case would be for the government not to
I know,
the
Hanson,
stipulate
please, Hanson, for the love of
marriage at
fucking God,
all.
I don't need you to repeat yourself. I certainly
Well,
don't need you to repeat
because you just said I want to expand the government's role.
because you have made the argument for both at this point and it's frustrating as fuck
No, you,
because you
okay,
completely
let
derailed
me
a room that
explain.
was having a conversation because of your bullshit. Like you
No,
do
let
this
me
on
explain.
occasion and it gets really goddamn fresh. No, you don't need to explain. We all understand. The problem is not a lack of understanding. The problem is a lack of participation in the motherfucking conversation that we were having, Hanson.
You're saying that I'm contradicting myself. I'm saying that I'm not. Let me explain why I'm not.
There's nothing I would like less than for you to continue making the point that you have repeatedly fucking made.
she's making the point about your social blindness, Hanson, and I don't think there's a cure for this. You're not ever going to understand this. Yeah, as much input as others give you, I don't know, and you're an ideologue on top of this, so it's like talking to a wall here, and it's
Well, because
irrational.
wait a
you don't,
No,
second,
and
you
let me
can't
Let's
save
let
comprehend
let
Dr.
me
Hold on,
save
hold
Hanson.
on. We're gonna let Dr. Jordan jump in because I mean, who knows?
So
We'll see where this
I,
goes.
I'm totally late to this conversation, but I'll say this much: whether or not I agree with Hansen philosophically is a different thing. But analytically, he's right. The social sciences are rife with all kinds of analytical issues. Um, the way the data is interpreted is problematic, and so what surfaces in the popular media is also of concern. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I also would say that this is why Kelly is way too smart for academia. You would go nuts because these kinds of arguments, these circular arguments, occur all the time, and the academics, and I'm not picking on Hansen at all because I respect him very much, but I think that this is the culture that we've come from, and it's really problematic. So sometimes teasing out the bare bones is what people focus on, and you miss the forest from the trees. And I just wanted to share that because the only reason I bothered to jump in while I'm driving is because this happens all too often. It never gets discussed appropriately. I'm done.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan.
I think there's also been arguments on the impact on children in polygamous relationships. And maybe just Google and read some of the reports on it. And obviously, it's enough to keep, as I keep saying, there's legislative intent. There's a reason a law exists. It just doesn't come from the air. So there's studies, there's reasons we ban certain things that are harmful to our society. And if there was ongoing issues for children raised in these households, that they could experience problems in certain dynamics, um, or there's property issues, or it lends itself to more abuse, and that statistically holds water, then that's going to be the basis for legislation. I mean, that's just it, whether you like it or not. With any legislation, they're going to come in and ban something if statistically they're able to argue that and get enough votes in a legislature.
And
Yeah,
Abby,
but
that was
I'm
the
just saying that
findings. That
these
was the
arguments
I'm
just
sorry,
don't
Hanson. I think I
stand.
started first. And Abby, that was the findings of the Canadian courts as well. That it was detrimental not only to the children but also to the women. And so that was after an adversarial relationship, where both sides had a chance to argue the data.
Well, show the data and put in the link, and we'll have I'll be glad to have a room, this paper room, paper reading, analyzing room with you and Adam. Put
But
in the
Hanson,
link.
but does it, I just to the end point, if we do find that there is robust and clear statistical arguments in favor of this position that the Supreme Court of Canada has, would you then accept that it is acceptable for polygamy to be banned?
So you're saying that the polygamy is the cause of the children having the being abused? Is
Not
that
the
what
Yes.
you're saying?
cause, a contributing factor.
Well, now you're just backing away. I mean,
Okay. Well,
Backing
the
away and
cause of
making a legal statement.
let's say it is, Hanson. Then what? then are you, do you support this policy to ban polygamy?
well, I mean, maybe.
What is the
I have a
conditions?
study also from the Bedouins. There's a big issue in Israel with this, and the Bedouin families that have polygamy, and there are a lot of problems in those communities as a result of it. I'll put that one in the chat. I'm sure that's too remote in a society, Hanson, to use that as a objectively, but there's been
Yeah,
studies in
because
different,
you have
but
so
it has
like a,
caused
Hey,
such
problems.
confusion
Israel's
that
Abby,
a
Abby, I want to ask
modern
a
Western
question.
country, but it has caused problems in Israel with the polygamy. Yeah.
Okay, Abby. So the Bedouins have been practicing polygamy for how long?
Probably forever, but now they're mixing in with a Western
Right.
society, and so that um, I don't know. You can read this study. I'm just glancing over it now, but I had heard this before that some of the polygamous families have caused some societal issues there. I don't know. You could read it for yourself.
Uh, Hanson,
Okay,
just
but
back to
the
your
point, the reason why I was asking the question is if it's something that has been, I guess, been going, it's something that has been acceptable within a particular society for as long as it can be remembered, and purely that the problems are occurring because of westernized society finding it more difficult to be able to cope with it. There'd probably be evidence to be able to find that
I mean, it's legal and accepted there.
they'd be really
So,
quite supportive towards it. I mean, if a social structure is able to stand up for itself
well, it's not
with its own
illegal, Rowan.
values.
It's not illegal
I
there.
didn't say
You know.
that it was illegal. I didn't say, but I was saying if a social structure can stand for itself for a long period of time, with having certain values in place, and the culture actually suggests that it's something that is workable, albeit problematic in some way, shape, or forms, then it can and does work for certain people. But when mixed in, what I'm hearing, right, with Western society, that's where like some of the problems occur. And when I'm saying this with a degree of ignorance, and I just want to be transparent about that. I'm not, I don't
I
have
know, I hear
a
you.
great deal
I'm
of
not.
knowledge with that, you know what I mean?
I'm not advocating either way, but I'd heard that there was an issue before. Someone who's a scholar there had put it in one of his manifestos, his treaties. So this just popped up. So you can read it and I agree. Like what happens, interesting question, what happens when modern Western life, mixes with an ancient culture at the same time, an ancient, practices or
Exactly.
older practices. Yeah, I agree with you. But I know it's not illegal in the Bedouin community. But there's the studies have to do with the psychological issues of the children, things like that.
So, Hanson, to your maybe, you're opening the door to accept the right of the state to prohibit polygamy. does this contradict your ideological position that the government only has its concern with the welfare of property rights? Or do you then accept that the state has broader powers to determine the
How does that?
general
How does
welfare?
that? How does? Okay, let me understand what you're trying to say. Does, let's say, murder violate the state's rights? I mean, prohibiting murder, does it imply the state should prohibit murder? Let's say, does that in contradiction with the protection of private property rights?
Uh, yeah, unless you think that your person is private property, in which
Oh,
case I guess
so
it
your
molds with
person,
your.
your body is not your most primal property.
Let me look at the definition of the term property.
Yeah,
I don't
Adam,
know. Like it to me, it would be an extension of it's exterior to oneself. I wouldn't
he
consider
keeps
myself
going into
property.
the
Really, your
he keeps going
body
criminal, and you got to move him away from the criminal
is
argument. He
not your
keeps going in
most
that
primal
direction.
property.
Hanson, you keep going in the criminal direction, and we keep asking you, do you understand in a civilized society the need for some regulation and some government involvement to protect the morals and the health and the welfare? And you just can't acknowledge it. You keep saying it's property rights.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably. I mean, when you say welfare, how do you define the welfare? I mean, you cannot have an all-encompassing concept saying that the moral I have to
Euro defined it.
protect
Euro, do it
just
again.
just
Yeah.
as just
So
as the
so first of
Communist
all,
Party,
I
Chinese Communist Party, erect the firewall, the Great Firewall, because they want to protect the welfare and their psychological well-being of the citizen.
so we're using words now in very unusual, non-orthodox meanings. So property doesn't normally include your own life. I haven't even heard this before. Uh, Property is, I just looked up in the dictionary to make sure I wasn't like hallucinating here. But these are objects or things that belong to people. So you're distorting like the normal meaning of words to for
No,
some sense of ideology.
you just said the things that belong to people. So does not your arms and legs belong to you?
I mean, I could ask Abby, but and Abby, have you ever heard of property meaning to mean that human life or human body
No,
parts?
no,
Yeah,
no.
I don't know of any
We
any
have
legal jurisdiction that has that interpretation. It just seems so bizarre to me.
But
And
it's
the
so
only reason
natural.
you're
Absolutely
you're
not.
real
doing
It's
it.
just
property
so
and
natural.
personal property. Those are the two types of property that we have. We have what's personal, which could be intellectual, it could vary, and we have real property rights, which is land.
Yeah, so it's just so natural. Like, I mean, like you just asked me a question.
But
I
but but
answered
Hanson,
you.
you still can't acknowledge the question we keep saying to you. What's the purpose of a government?
Like I said, they protect property rights and then the uphold the sanctity of the contract.
Explain a contract, Hanson.
Well, agreement between two parties.
Explain it. Explain it.
Uh, What do you mean? It's an agreement
Define
that
agreement.
between two
Define
parties.
agreement. Define it.
Okay, can somebody define, please?
Yeah, because he
Exactly.
can't. So it's an offer and an accept. I mean, I'm going to take you into first year law school right now, Hanson. It's an offer and an acceptance with consideration that passes. Okay, so it's
Okay,
not
so
just an
how does that
agreement.
not explain?
There's ways to define
How
what
is it
a
more?
contract is and
How
ways to
did you
define an agreement.
agree? How did you explain more than I
Offer
just
has
said?
many ways to define an offer. Something you might think is an offer is not a proper offer. Acceptance is illegal. definition lots of things that you think are proper acceptance or you think wasn't an
Well,
acceptance
you're
could
just
be an
getting into
acceptance?
the minutia.
Consideration, what is consideration? Is there value, is consideration matching the terms of the contract? Is there a term in the contract? I mean, you really want me to go into this? It's like
Well,
you just
yeah,
can't
you
Yeah,
can
there,
go
say,
into this, but
oh my God.
what content did you add
I mean, I
to
just
what I said?
what did I just add to you? I'd like tell you pick up like
she, she
Yeah,
contracts
so what
for share
information,
law
she
what
named
firms and
three
learn
off
information
the
what
you just
bat, which
said
what the
is
added?
definition of an agreement is.
offer
Yeah.
acceptance and
So what more
consideration.
information
You
have you
have to also
added to
have an
what I said?
intention to create a legal relation,
Yes, I
usually
mean there's
capacity,
thank you.
legality.
Keep
There's
going.
lots of, yeah, there's lots of conditions.
Yeah, so that's why you need government to be in it to uphold the sanctity of it.
Yes, that's one
You
of the
need the
necessary things of
government to
government.
do that?
Yeah,
Hmm. Maybe I've been writing contracts incorrectly. I'm not sure.
Apparently, people are property. I thought the U.S. resolved this, but apparently not, according to Hansen.
yeah.
Well,
Why is it
so
not?
this is not a matter of like how our constitution or our government necessarily look at property rights. But Hansen, like, I guess to defend what Hansen's saying, and also to agree with what many of us on the stage have said, Hansen is arguing from his own personal philosophical position, which, as I've said a couple times, like I appreciate and in many ways I agree with. I just I somehow I am able to acknowledge that this conversation, uh, if in fact we want to have it around the real world, we have to be able to accept that the real world, and especially if we're talking about one particular government, they acknowledge things in different ways. And so we can try and make a case for our own personal philosophy, in ways that it can be defended in the current structure. Hansen has just not made that step yet. He is making an argument based on his personal philosophy, not based on the American legal system or the rights afforded to us.
Yeah, I mean, there's some general principles that he's espousing that could make some sense. The problem is he's extending it to such extreme limits that it's just not even workable anywhere on this planet.
Yeah,
Why is
no,
it not
I
workable?
agree, but like the idea of a human being being property, it doesn't extend beyond their own person. But he's not wrong in his like he's not the only one that holds this philosophical position. It's just Hanson. They're having a conversation with you about the United States and what the government acknowledges and what the Constitution affords, but you're still only speaking about this in terms of very strict libertarian philosophical principles. And this is, I
No,
mean,
I
like
am aware.
you have gone from not being on topic to now no longer participating in even the broad discussion that you shifted it to.
I am aware what's status quo, right? So, but I don't think we are talking about status quo. We're talking about what could be changed.
No, no, we were never talking about that. That was never a part of this motherfucking conversation, Hanson. This is the third time I have this explicitly told you this. That is not what the conversation was about. It never was. You were having this conversation without even giving yourself the time to hear what the conversation was about. You are still having it, even though you've been repeatedly told that you're not participating in the conversation. Now that the room has capitulated to your fucking demands, you have shifted from acknowledging the fucking state of like the government of the United States as it is to only wanting to apply law based on Hanson's personal philosophy. You have taken us from the conversation we were having, demanded that we structure it around what it is that you wanted to talk about. Now that we've done that, you've completely changed the framework. It is ridiculous, Hanson.
Okay, maybe I'm not aware. I mean, what is the thesis of the conversation then? What is the thesis of the room?
Do you not actually look at the title of the room or
Well,
pay
no,
attention to the conversation around you?
the title was a joke. I was making a joke about, uh, I was making an anti-woman joke. Like, it seems like being married's a pain in the ass enough for men. Why in the world would they want multiple wives? So the title, fair enough. But no, he did not give himself time, even when he was told repeatedly that he was not on topic. to be able to digest what the discussion was about. But now it is about what he wanted to talk about. But he has yet again shifted uh, basically how he's operating in the conversation. It's no longer about what the U.S. should do. It's about the United States of Hanson's political philosophy.
Hey,
Well, good evening, Kel. This is going to be a fun conversation while I'm watching 17 again. All right, sounds good. Let's go, Kel.
Hanson, can you acknowledge that property rights and the way that you see them are not necessarily going to line up with the rest of the room who's now capitulated to having this particular discussion with you, how they're trying to keep it within the framework of the United States government and the United States courts and the decisions that they've made?
I don't know. I mean, I think the
Oh
what
my
I
God. The
said
fact that you're
about
even
the
quibbling with like
what
the
quibbling.
fact that
I'm
you
saying
can't say
I'm
yes means that you don't even intend to have this conversation in good faith.
of course I'm having the conversation in good faith. Why would you question that?
Because it should be a given that you have the conversation in terms of America, since that's what we're discussing.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. I think America in the Constitution is the closest among all the countries in this world to this libertarian ideal.
I agree,
But
but
it's
you
far away.
refuse to
It's
acknowledge the
still
points that people are trying
closest.
to raise about decisions that have been made around this and whether or not they pertain to you as an individual being your own property.
Wait. Yeah, of course. I mean, my individual, my body, my soul is my own property. It's the primal. It's
I
the
give up,
most
you guys.
important property.
Wow, you guys are still
You said
arguing?
your soul is property?
Yes, whatever,
Of
however you define
Hashem.
soul.
It's Hashem's property, right, Ron? Sorry.
It's certainly not something that I want the courts to get involved with.
Surely not.
My
Yeah,
soul.
well,
I mean, that's just crazy to me.
Hanson, I don't want to dox you, but do you live in you said you're in the US. Are you in a state that's a liberal state or are you in a conservative state?
oh, liberal, blue as hell.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I understand this about Hanson, which is why I completely appreciate the lengths to which he will go to be in opposition to authoritarian rule. So I vibe with that.
Well, I appreciate the opposition to authoritarianism. The problem is he's just adopted such an extreme view that it's like completely out of touch with reality.
Well, it's not the adoption of it, it's the inability to have a conversation operating outside of that.
Wow, you guys are still arguing. Just came back. It's like,
Isn't it
man.
amazing? Isn't it amazing? Hanson, this is like we have given you this much latitude.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Well,
That's his Christmas gift.
Kel, we went from circumcisions to different things, and now I don't even know today. This has been the funniest fucking room. Where's Roger?
I guess the best way to put it succinctly would be we went from circumcisions to circumventions, and that's where we are.
I guess Somalia is a lot closer to being a libertarian society than the United States
Why do
Where?
you say so?
because they don't have a functioning central government.
Well, like I said, government's duty. There is a function. There's a role for government. The government's duty is to protect private property rights and uphold the sanctity
Well,
of agreed contract. And
Well,
Hanson's
Somali
not an
doesn't.
anarch. Yeah,
Somali
Hanson's not
doesn't
an
have it.
anarchist.
Exactly.
well,
Let me defend you for a second, Hanson. Hanson is not an anarchist. Like when I refer to him as libertarian, I refer to him in the kind of bastardized way that libertarian can even be a political party, right? Like Hanson's more of a minarchist, and so he does believe that government has a role. And I think I don't want to listen. I'm going to speak for him, but he can say that I'm wrong or not. But he appreciates what that role is meant to be. He doesn't appreciate it being expanded beyond a certain point. But I think he acknowledges that, like, without a government, it's really hard uh, to assert your natural rights. And so, there is a distinction between a Somali versus what Hansen would ideally prefer.
Well, it
by the
sounded
way,
like he was
but
against public roads, so.
Yeah.
but
So how is that not against the government? I mean, do you
hold on,
see
Hanson,
the
real quick.
logical contradiction?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say no. As far as Somalia, they do have a government. Been to Somalia. They do have a government now. As far as them maintaining their country, that's another question. They have a hard time controlling their country because of Al Shabaab, obviously. But that's why Ethiopia is in there and Kenya is also in there.
Yeah,
And
just
No,
because
no,
they
I
take
know they
over.
have a government, but their central government is
it's
minimal.
weak, yeah. So yeah, they lose to Al Shabaab all the time. That's true.
Yeah,
But they
exactly.
do have a
They're not
government. They're not.
fulfilling their
Matter of fact, they
duty.
meet with.
That's
They just recently made a deal with Turkey. Turkey's gonna extract oil because Somalia has high deposits of oil, in their by their shores, and underground. So I think they're still doing deals as a functioning government. But the thing is, now do they have control of their country? No. Matter of fact, there's
Right.
a state within
That's
a state. There's a place called Somaliland, who's trying to break away. They've been trying to do it for 33 years, and
yeah.
actually, the Trump administration, in his Project 2025, it actually mentions that they're willing to recognize it as a country, because they what they do is, when I say they're a state within a state, literally their own government. They move like their own government body. They have their own kind of protection, like own local military. They kind of have their own currency. They function amongst themselves. They're literally moving with a state within us. They're doing their own thing, and Somalia doesn't have any territory control on Somaliland. So they're like a state within a state. So internationally, they're recognized as Somalia as part of still Somalia's sovereign territory, but locally, that's not the case, right? So they're trying to break away, and not Trump, the Republican administration, specifically Trump's administration, is open to that, and obviously in return the United States would get, obviously there's no free lunch, right? So they would get a military base. So if you know Djibouti, there's about 6 military bases there. China has a military base there. America, the Saudis have it. The French has had it. Djibouti used to be part of Ethiopia, but the Djibouti was Ethiopia. The Ethiopians leased it to the French, and then over time, the Djiboutians got a referendum from the French, and then they started renting bases, and that's what kind of feeds this economy. But America wants a strategic, because that's a strategic area, the Gulf of Aden. They want a base there, and because Somalia is not stable, and Somaliland is stable, they see it as an opportunity, and then also Somaliland wants to be a country, so they're like, well, you know what, we'll do it. So it looks like I don't know if Trump's administration is gonna see through it, but it is in this Project 2025
No,
agenda.
Project 2025 Stop You is not Trump's administration.
Well,
So
it's a bunch of think tanks.
part of
Yeah, it's a bunch.
the Republican platform is what
Yeah.
Trump is involved with, not Project 2025. I just have to correct you on that.
Well, their Heritage
He
Foundation and
specifically distanced himself from the Heritage Project 2025. And he over and over has distanced himself, but he has not distanced himself from the Republican platform.
but the guy.
Sorry, I just have to correct you when you say
Well,
it.
no, but last thing I heard was that the guy who kind of was the for sort of say the author of Project 2025, and how he would be actually getting a cabinet in his in his
But as Trump has probably 50 fucking times said, I am not involved with Project 2025. He said it almost every speech he gave through his election, and he continues to say it. So I have to keep correcting you that out of the mouth of the man that's our president-elect, he has distanced himself from Project 2025.
No, but what I'm saying is the guy who whose spearhead is one of the founding authors of Project 125, that document. They said that he's going to be part of his cabinet.
But
So
who's
what does
they
that mean?
and who he? And I mean, like
That
again,
he's
what
that he's
what
going to
else do you
elect him.
need? Like, would someone else like to chime in? How many times has
Yeah,
Trump
let
said
me
it?
try. Let me try and put it in different words. So these think tanks, or even if we don't even want to include the fact that a think tank did this, which we know a think tank did. If we just think about how political, uh, I wouldn't call this political philosophy, but in general, if we're thinking about politics and who believes in what, the the grouping of people who contribute to policymaking in general, once you remove lobbyists, for example, it's not an enormous group. So having crossover, even if we want to think about Project 2025 and somebody who had more of a leadership position in like writing this particular document, it does not necessarily implicate Trump or his viewpoints or his policy making to have this individual be a part of his administration. I mean, like it's over 100 people that were involved in it were, I think, in his previous administration. But these are just people who exist as Republicans, and this is very common. Like you'll have the same kind of thing happen with Democrats. It is not necessarily true that because someone associated with the current or the future administration who had a significant hand in Project 2025 means that Project 2025 is an agenda of Trump's. It just doesn't mean that. Like I would argue, and I'm not saying that there's any evidence for this or like a basis. This is just an assertion. I would argue that Project 2025, also, if you look at the timeline of when it was written, I think that a case could be made that it was much more in line with what Ron DeSantis would have had as a platform. Generally speaking, though, this is all just Republican shit. And you're going to have Republicans who are in policy making kind of positions in the private sector oftentimes wind up in these kinds of roles in an administration. But that does not mean that everything that they've ever done has been adopted by that administration.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
there you have the what's that guy's name? I forgot his name. Oh, Russ Vought. He's a key figure in the project, and he's expected to lead the Office of Management and Budget. And so and the agency is responsible for developing the
Right. You can
president's
repeat
proposed.
yourself with more specificity, or you can reply to the statements that have been made that are trying to explain to you why that's not necessarily important. You can do one or the other. I would suggest you do the latter. It would make the conversation go better.
You'd
so
probably
No,
be
Pen,
better
I
to
forgot.
look at Marco
Is it?
Rubio's track record with Somaliland, who, since he's going to be our Secretary of State, and take a look at statements he's made on it. You'd probably be in a better position to argue that than someone who might at some point get an appointment that hasn't gotten an appointment and probably hasn't specifically because Trump disavowed anything to do with the project. But I'd take a look at Rubio's position on Somaliland. You may be spot on, but that would be the direction of the administration.
I mean, Pan Africa. Is it necessary to quote the Project 2025 to make your point? If it is not, maybe you can do it some from another angle.
the only reason why I mentioned is because the fact that just I heard Somalia and it was about the government, and they were talking with you, and Somalia was mentioned, and I just mentioned about the it having a government, but it's just not. They haven't been able to sustain their country, and I was giving examples how they haven't been able to sustain their country, and a state within a state basically operating that wants to break away, So
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
actually the same topic.
government, obviously the government, the Somali government is not doing its job.
Hanson, I have a
But
question for you. Do you vote are you U.S. citizen now? Do you vote?
yes, I've been a U.S. citizen for a long
Have
time.
you ever tried? I mean, you have very strong opinions politically, with how you see government and its role in government. Have you ever reached out to your member of Congress to sit down and have discussions, or anyone of your representatives? Have you ever tried to dialogue with them?
I haven't talked to sitting down face to face to a congressman, and well, most cases the congressman in my district is a Democrat, a Democrat. So I'm working to unseat them, and
Have you
yeah,
worked
I've been
with someone running against your member? Have you worked with the Republican Party then?
yeah,
Cool. So
and I
I was
actually
just going
to
to say
be
it's a great thing for you. You have very strong opinions about it, and it would be really great for you to like talk to people that are getting involved in government, and tell them how you feel and why you
oh
feel
yeah.
these ways.
Yeah, I actually do so in this particular in this election and last time over the time I've contributed $2,000 to the Trump campaign and yeah and the of course I made it all back from the the election betting pool.
You did do the betting pool.
Yes, I did. I won like close to $5,000. I
That's
contributed
great.
How
$2,000
much
and won close to five
When
thousand
did you
dollars
go
in
in?
how much money does Thugger Biden owe you, Hanson?
Sorry, what? Say
How
again?
much money does Thugger Biden owe you? Wink
That's
wink nudge nudge.
Thugger Biden.
Thugga. He's talking about
Yeah,
Thugga.
Thugger, he's on this app. He was making bets with a bunch of people. I don't think
Oh, okay.
anyone's
I
seen from
didn't
him.
bet with him against him. Was he making bets?
Yeah, he was losing too.
Yeah,
When
and
did you
losing
go
bad. Yeah,
in?
How much did he bet?
I don't
I
know, lots though.
Gosh,
When did you
it's
place your
so bad
bet,
that I didn't.
Hanson? When did you
Huh?
go in and bet? Like, what was your time frame on your bet?
I went in like after July, the assassination attempt. Yeah,
Who'd you do? That's before the court ruling that legalized that one entity for taking bets. So people were doing mostly offshore.
yeah. I think I did on poly markets and
Uh-huh.
then also the Robinhood as well.
Wow. So you went in kind of early.
Yeah, over time, but not in one time. The overtime kind of the gradually, yeah, putting in more. Did you try it, Abby?
No, because it was illegal when it was first happening, and I'm in the gaming industry. I didn't touch it. I won't go near it. I'm
Oh,
like
because
really
you're
careful what I
because
bet on.
because the compliance rules.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, got it.
So no, I didn't touch it, but I'm fascinated by people that have made money at it and when they went in.
Yeah. Are you with any like sports betting company or something?
Well, it's kind of a not anymore. I'm retired, but um s- was involved with one. I mean, in my state it's been legal for a very long time. So almost all the properties have sports wagering.
Gotcha.
I do
So,
that.
hi, Abby.
Uh,
I want to
hey,
talk with you.
hi.
Yeah, so like what to do for like you have mentioned like casino gaming compliance. So, are you like a judge or what?
No, I'm not a judge. I'm a
Okay,
lawyer.
then
I'm a lawyer.
you are a lawyer. Okay. So, you fight cases for like betting users or gaming?
I'm retired now. my dear. I used to. Yes, I absolutely used to do that. But wait, can I just jump back to Hanson for a sec? Hanson, so getting back and getting involved in the political process in the government, it's really neat to hear that you actually did that. Not just the betting, but you actually do that. We have so many people on the app that have opinions and they don't engage. And I think that that's just really, and I didn't know that about you. So I just wanted to compliment you for that because I think it's so important.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, actually, not only betting, not only contributing, $2,000 to your Trump campaign, I was calling people I know in Pennsylvania before the vote. Well, I actually succeeded in persuading some of them to vote for Trump. So,
I door knocked there. I actually flew there to
oh, you
door knock.
did?
Yeah. Same thing. Like, I, I'm in two swing states. So,
You,
because I have residence, in another state, but I own a place in Pennsylvania. But I went and door knocked and really was trying because it was so important. Every vote in PA. I mean, it was the most critical state.
yeah, actually, persuaded a Wharton professor uh,
Wow.
to, yeah, because
Anyway,
actually,
How'd you do that?
well, I knew her before. She's my friend, and so and her son, one particular son, was so anti-Trump. I actually uh, talked to her in 2020, and she said her son, if her son knew about she's going to vote for Trump, he's going to disown her. So, and but I did persuade her to vote for Trump last time and this time as well, among other people.
It's interesting. Well, I mean, that campus
uh,
is pretty liberal, but Wharton can, if there's a conservative wing of the campus, it would be people at Wharton.
Yeah, actually, I do. I mean, she said the same thing to me. That the Wharton seemed to be more, um, you know, reality, let's say, oriented or closer to the reality, less woke than other departments.
Yes, for sure.
Abby, can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Yeah, so you are an attorney, like you are helping like the betting user. So ever you receive such kind of case, like someone is a victim or like having a habit of betting and all, and they want you to file a chargeback, fake chargeback, and they need your help to recover the loss. So
I'm
what to do?
retired. I'm retired, and B, I don't give legal advice on the app, but I'm
No,
retired. I
no,
don't
no.
do it
I
anymore.
am asking you, like, do you receive such kind of cases, like when like they try to scam bank
She said she's
the
retired, man.
betting users?
Shoda, I
Yes,
don't practice anymore, but there's lots
I
of
just
lawyers that do
want to
that kind
know
of stuff.
the situation, like because I'm working like in a bank, so I used to receive such a lot of chargeback requests from these betting and gambling users. So we used to reject mostly. So I want to understand the concept that are the like really they forget this transaction, or they just want to when like they realize that they have done a mistake, and then they
I couldn't tell you. In the United States, we have CTRs, and we have very, very strict compliance on transactions involving the gaming industry, and also with any cash above $10,000. But
yeah, yeah, there is
I can't tell you, and I don't practice anymore. But there's lots of people that do if you have a specific.
betting. Yeah, yeah. So actually, I was working for a UK based bank. So they are also in United States. So you are right. But in United States, they used to file chargeback for a Cash App. So what is the Cash App thing? Can you please explain anyone if anyone is living in US, like why they are like sending money from Cash App to their own account, then they are claiming as like unauthorized transaction. Why this is happening in US?
I don't know. It sounds like it might be a scam. Abby,
Yeah.
I had a quick question for you.
Yeah.
So I have a there's a woman I know living in France. She's an American. She's been here for many, many years now. She's an attorney, or maybe I should say she was an attorney. So this is the part I'm not sure about. Um, so she was an active attorney until recently, and then she told me she's retired, and she told me she's no longer an ABA member. So does that mean
Means
she's no
nothing.
longer a lawyer, or is
No,
she
no,
still
no, no,
a
no, no,
lawyer?
no. The ABA is just a uh what do you call it, a business association. A
Okay.
lot of people like are not, and your state bar associations and your county bar associations, they're trade, it's like a trade association. So a lot of people, when you first start practicing, you join the ABA and you join your state bar association, but that doesn't have anything to do with your licensure. Your licensure in the U.S. comes by each state, and the Supreme Court of the particular state. Well, New York, it's not called the Supreme Court, but the High Court of whatever state you're in, and the licensing. The board of law examiners, you ultimately take a test, and then your license re-ups through the state is totally different. But a bar association is just like a medical, like the AMA. If you're not a member of the AMA, it doesn't make you not a licensed physician. The same kind of thing.
So, well, the reason why I
But
ask
there's
is,
maybe her license is did she say she's inactive? She's licensed in the States? She might be
well,
have gone
this
inactive.
this is the thing. I've known her for years, right? And so, she's spoken at some meetings that I run and stuff like that. And so recently, I had a conversation with her, and I referenced her as a lawyer, like I typically do. And then she said, "Oh yeah, she said you're on retired, and I dropped my ABA membership."
Well, then
So I
that's
didn't.
that's
Yeah.
nothing. That wouldn't
Okay.
make you a lawyer or non-lawyer. You can go inactive in a state. And a lot of people do because you got to pay the state fees and you have to take these freaking CLE classes. I have
Oh,
to take like 17 credits now, some crazy number every year to keep the main state that I live in active. And
I see.
then I have two other states I'm licensed in, so I got to pay them fees. So in one of the states I just went inactive, but I
Right.
didn't lose, I can activate it, but often it
Right.
also means keeping, like when you're active, you have to have a bond because you have trust fund money. So
Right.
you have to pay. I mean, your fees are accumulation of certain expenses that get assessed. You have pro bono fees, that go into certain funds. So a lot of people like to take hiatus from that, especially if they have no income coming in on it. Like, why pay all the fees? But it
Maybe that's what
doesn't.
she did. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what she meant, but it just came out wrong. But the
Right.
ABA is, God, I don't think I've
Yeah.
had a membership in years and years. My law firm would just pay for it, but like,
Right.
there's no reason to really have it if you're not
So
practicing.
so
Did you
let's
see the
say,
difference? Yeah.
yeah, no, I definitely see the difference. So let me ask you this: if it's true that she did become inactive, or she inactivated her licenses, or whatever she did, would she want to say then that she's not a lawyer anymore, or?
No. Why would you ever say that? Unless you got disbarred. But
No, no, she wasn't. I'm pretty
no.
sure she wasn't
No,
disbarred.
so you wouldn't say that. You would just
So
say
it's
you're
just say
retired.
I could just say she's a retired lawyer then, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
she just used the wrong vernacular, I think, for it. But no, you wouldn't say you're. I mean, you're always going to have that status.
She's just not a practicing attorney, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. I mean, I would say it that way, maybe.
Well, she's the one that raised the objection, so I didn't know why. It just
Yeah, but the ABA
seems.
is kind of, again, it's just it doesn't determine your state determines your state licensing.
I think she said that because she used to have like some kind of position in the ABA. I forgot what it was.
I don't think I've had an ABA membership in a long time. I forget now. I'd have to look.
Hi, Animesh.
Anyway, back to Hanson for a second. So, Hanson, that's pretty cool that you were able to talk someone into that. Um, and don't lose faith with your, your state and your federal rep, because when I saw the map and what happened in California and in these blue states, and how like the belly of some of those states has turned red, there's still hope.
Oh yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you. And actually, I donated to some contender, um, Republican contender, and a Libertarian in my state, but not in my district, some other district. Yeah,
You never know. I'm in a purple state, and our Dem reps, so our two senators are Dem, and our most of our reps are all Dem, but they're moderates, you know, because it's a purple state. Governor's a Republican.
yeah, gotcha. Yeah,
So Barbie is a Democratic. So can you please pull her? She's a Democratic supporter.
Who?
Barbie. She's from US. American girl.
And what do you want to do? What do you mean by pull her?
Pull her on call. Huh.
yeah.
Hi.
Abby, I just want to say that I mean that I just thought that this election was the last chance we have for liberty. That's why I was so you know
I had that
Like when
conversation last night. What would we have done if we lost? Like we were talking about that last night. We thought it would be all over.
yeah.
Like,
I think it's going to be all over. I mean, it's if Americans cannot see what a uh, this communistic, socialistic candidate they're going to vote for in Kamala. I just don't see any hope. Uh, the it, it's it's so sad. I mean
so
that the
is there
communism
any hope for Kamala
follow.
Harris? Like I do not have much idea about American politics. So like I thought like already Trump won the election, right?
Yeah, no, I know. We're just talking about the counterfactual. Um, yeah, so if like I said, if Americans can't see uh, the abyss that they're 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 facing, they're getting into, they're jumping into, that is just there's no hope.
Yeah, so like nowadays in the whole world, the people are selecting the right wing governments, right? So the Trump is also a right wing in America, and Mr. Modi in India is also a right wing in India. So if you see like the global politics, so the majority wins. So the Trump is playing, majority card. So so Trump is focused on the vote bank. So I think that America is also shifting in that kind of politics. So the minority, the communism, the togetherness, this will become the old style politics.
So I think the counterfactual is kind of interesting because if Harris had won, isn't the amount of damage she could have done limited by the fact that both houses are Republican?
I mean that would have been the argument. It's interesting whether she'll win. My member of Congress thinks she's going to win the gubernatorial race in California, hands down. She thinks she'll have no problem. I'm curious what people in California actually think, because when you look at that map of the counties in California in this last election, that's where I said the big belly of them, a lot of them went red, and it was a bit shocking. I forget what
Wait,
the percentage was.
you mean she announced she's running?
She didn't announce yet, but that's kind of what
Oh, that's kind
everyone's,
of the conventional wisdom. Okay.
yeah.
So here, I have a question for you guys. I'm from California, okay? So my question is like, why would someone want to support someone who wants to take away food stamps, who wants to take away FAFSA, who wants to take away Social Security, and not do anything for the lower middle class people or people who are below poverty for them? Why would you want to support someone like that?
Well, I mean, that's interesting. Should America support communism and socialism?
So should all these people end up in homeless shelters?
Well, they
And
can
then,
go out and
and
get
if they
work.
end up in homeless shelter, then the rate of crime will rise. Because then people, what are people supposed to do to feed their families if they can't find jobs?
Go to
Are they
work.
supposed to? What if there's no jobs available? Are they supposed to come
No,
to your home and
freedom,
steal from you?
freedom will produce jobs, right? And it's the
What
government
freedom? Tell
regulation
me this.
that suppresses the job creation.
Yeah, everything is taken over by technology. You walk into a grocery store and you see self checkout. So now people can do self checkout versus back in the days. You used to see people at the register
Exactly.
helping you.
So the register, these people can free up and get some other more meaningful job.
I'll be honest with you, as far as the lower economic scale of uh, middle class,
I'm a Democrat. I'm definitely a
lower
Democrat.
income and impoverished Americans, I don't think Trump will have a good effect on them. But what I do like about Trump is that, obviously if you're in a higher middle class and making 400K and up, you probably make good, get good tax breaks off him. But when it comes to, like one thing I do like about him is the immigration stance, right? So immigration from like, I think people need to go and I think the brain drain coming from a lot of immigrants. I've talked to a lot of immigrants, and they're like, yeah, we need to build our countries. So, a lot of immigrants, they come to America, and and instead of staying in their countries and building their countries, they come to America, right? And that's that brain drain. So I think it makes yourself look, and it's not just America, Europe. There's right wing anti-immigration, governments forming in Europe. Italy, she's right wing. Netherlands, Sweden is getting a hard sense. Right wing are winning many states in Germany. So we're seeing it all over Europe. India, you mentioned India with this country, and so I think this is good for immigrants in the sense that not the sense of their ambition to come to America, but more of like a internal healthy approach where go and build your country, go and better your country, right? And it's not from a antagonistic point of view, like literally genuinely, like from a genuine point of view, like build your country. I think it'll you know it's good to try to, people always talk about, oh, our bright minds are leaving our countries. Well, now you have an opportunity to build your countries. Not to mention the LGBTQI plus the transgender BS. I think he's gonna also. I think that's gonna be a beautiful thing. I don't think it's gonna be people can be normal genders without having to be worried about this being pushed in education by liberal by liberal media and by the Democrats. So I think that's one thing I really do
So
like
tell me this:
about him.
are you Native American? First, answer that question. Are you Native to
No,
America?
I'm not a native American. I'm just saying. I'm
So
talking
you're
about
a
the
white man. You're a white man or a black man, right?
I'm
So
I'm
tell me.
I'm, I'm not
So
white.
Okay, so you're African American. Tell me this: your ancestors were not native to this land, neither were mine.
I'm not
Neither were
African American
Hanson.
either, but okay.
Okay,
But what's your
whatever.
Okay.
point? What's your point?
So the thing is that none of us are like native to this land. I'm a proud American because I grew up here. And Henson said that, oh, there's going to be jobs freed. If people are going to be freed if technology takes over. Then they'll be able to create more jobs. Excuse me, what job? Technology, AI is taking over everything. Even medical clinics, there's everything is being computerized, and the jobs that people used to do, human labor used to do back then, like 20, 30 years ago, is taken over by technology. So what
Well, it's not going to
job?
be that quick, American. And to be quite honest, realistically speaking, right? This whole fear of AI taking over everybody's jobs, all jobs are going to be taken over, from healthcare to education to blue collar and white collar jobs to everyday McDonald's, Starbucks. I don't know what you guys, Walmart. Your basic store, whatever, being replaced by AI, whatever. Your local restaurant. I think it's not that simple. First of all, it's going to take time to implement this.
I'm a Democrat. I'm
Some
proud of.
hold on, American. Give me, just please, can I finish? So
Yeah, yeah.
because you have to understand, American, just to be fair, um, even if they wanted to do it, it wouldn't be that easy. First of all, you have to understand that putting AI as a medium of replacing the labor force. Now it would be good for, technically speaking, for the company, like multinational company, but like, well, listen, 60 to 70% of our money goes towards, paying wages, and now we can whatever X, 5,000 X our profit margins, quarterly earnings, whatever. But so, and then also my robot or whatever, my AI is not going to be worried about, being sick on the job, or getting tired, or liability, or got hurt on the job, all these things, right? And doesn't get so you have all that. So there's incentives for the corporations to implement these robots, right? Especially in warehouse jobs and things
Yeah.
like that. But I will say that it's not going to be that easy, because remember, you have to understand, if you do that in such a sturge, first of all, will there be enough robots to be manufactured quick enough to supply all these jobs? We'll see. I think it'll take time. Maybe take 20, 30 years, not 30 years, but like 10, 20 years. It might take some time. And I think, and not to mention the pushback by people, even if it's replacing certain industries. Well, we're already seeing automotive cars. You're seeing it with automated cars, like in San Francisco. I was seeing, like, now there's Uber, where you go in the car and no more drivers. So now Uber jobs and Lyft jobs are going to be replaced, right? So you're seeing people already, boom, they're already driving you to your destination, to wherever, from A to B, wherever you're going. So I will argue that is the implementation. First of all, it's going to take time, because of, and number two, what's going to make it take more even time is that the fact, you have to understand that people will push back, like, hey, you're taking our jobs, you're doing this, you're doing that, and not to mention unions take a part in this. Hey, well, unions going to be strong, especially like states like New York, which is heavily unionized. They're going to be like, no, there's going to be laws around it. So it's not going to be that easy for these AI companies to start implementing, to create partnerships, or these companies to buy these robots from these AI companies or whatever. So it's not that easy. There's laws, there's human civil rights things, labor laws that's gonna be stagnation. That's gonna make it more slower.